Hey everybody, this is Daniel with Bothersome Truth. I want to talk about a story that just came out that shows the DEA, the government, looking to outlaw a drug that has a positive benefit to people who are suffering from the opiate epidemic. And I want to talk about this because I think this shows a potentially troubling pattern from the DEA. So now I'm going to be looking at the story. I've got all the links below in the description so you can read this at your leisure how you want to. But basically, there's this drug called kratom, okay? And I had actually never heard of it until this week when I heard some stories. I first heard about it on Secular Talk. And so this drug helps people who are dealing with the opiate addiction so that they can get off of it, they can wean themselves off of it, okay? And the DEA is looking to make it Schedule 1. Now, here's why I think this is really interesting. Schedule 1 is like a top level of drugs where the government is basically saying that it is addictive and it has no medical benefit. But I just told you that it did. People are using this drug in order to help themselves deal with opiate epidemic. Some people use it for recreational use, but people are using it to benefit themselves, okay? And the government is saying that there's no medical use for it, no medical benefit. And so I wanted to talk about this because I find it troubling, especially just recently the DEA said it was going to keep marijuana as a Schedule 1. And they said, well, there's no proven medical benefit for marijuana, but the government actually has a patent for marijuana to be used for medical benefit. Exactly. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't go both ways. So let me read a little bit of this article about kratom, and then I want to throw it to you and get your opinions on this. So they're moving to place kratom on the Schedule 1 drugs. It's a naturally occurring psychoactive substance, holds promise for opioid addiction. Okay, and it's made from the leaves of Mitragina speciosa, and this is a Southeast Asian tree related to coffee. But what matters here is that people are using it, and the government is saying it does not have an approved medical use in the United States. It has been studied as a treatment. It has not been studied as a treatment agent in the United States. Now, what's troubling here is some people would say, okay, well, that says that they haven't studied it, they don't see the medical benefit yet, and then it could change. But the real question is, do they want that to happen? See, what troubles me here is, as I read this story, I'm reading about how basically this drug kind of acts in your brain the same way like an opiate does, an opioid, like a painkiller, the painkiller addiction. So, but it doesn't have like the addictive effects. Like the addiction rates are so very small for this. Like, and if it does happen from what I've studied, people are normally like mixing it with other drugs. So I see two problems here, and I think this connects to many of you who have a concern like I do that the government is overreaching into our lives, telling us what we can and can't do. We can't even be adults of our own lives. So the first thing that I think is important here is this can help with the opiate epidemic. Now we have an epidemic up north where people are dying from painkillers, okay, and addictions to them. And so here we have a drug that could help, and we're not considering all our options to prevent that from happening. That doesn't make sense to me. Okay, number two, this is what worries me. What worries me is that this is an example, perhaps, of big pharmaceutical companies having an effect on the DEA. Think about this. The DEA, it's in their interest to keep drugs illegal. Otherwise, if everything were legal, they wouldn't have jobs. So we have a possible perverse incentive here. Not only that, but if you have pharmaceutical companies, which we know have a big influence on the FDA and the government because of corruption in politics and lobbying, if they have a lot of influence in the DEA, then it's possible that they are outlawing this because they don't want people getting off painkillers because they make money from the painkillers. It's also possible that they're making a drug that's going to do the same type of thing, and they're saying, no, we don't want people using this because we may take those active ingredients, because that's what they're trying to outlaw. Basically, is the active ingredients from the plant that makes this drug. So they may say, well, we want to make that drug, so let's outlaw it here, and then we'll do the work so that it can be made legal, and then we can sell it to people. These are all possibilities. We don't know all these things for sure, but this is the problem. Like, the DEA doesn't look like they know that this drug has this benefit for people. And no, I've never taken it. I've never done drugs. I just have a concern if this is going to help people and they can't use it because of the DEA saying it has no accepted medical benefit when there is a medical benefit to it. It's just not the way the DEA wants it, or they don't understand it. I think there's a problem there. So that's why I think the story should be shared, because if you're like me, you want liberty. You want to be able to live the life that you want to live without somebody standing behind you telling you what you can and can't do. And if you have another case, where the government's telling you what you can and can't do, you can't live your life the way you want, I think that's a problem. Like, I think that's really bad. It defeats the purpose of liberty and justice for all when you can't even decide what you're going to put in your mouth and what you're going to take if you're dealing with something. I've said my piece, though. Now for the most important part of the video, what do you think? Like, what are your thoughts on this? Did you hear about this? Have you ever heard this? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Is there a whole nother perspective that I didn't mention? Tell me what you think. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Leave them in the comments below. And just a small favor, if you like this video, if you like the others that you've seen, please subscribe. We'd appreciate it. It would be awesome. This is Daniel with Bothersome Truth.